In real estate, the pandemic has changed the landscape of the work world. Many companies are saving money by requiring employees to work remotely, while many employees have found they prefer to work from home or somewhere else. It's turning many commercial buildings into caverns with nobody there. We are bringing in Jeff Ostrowski, a journalist for Bankrate.com. Jeff, one example is from Cushman Wakefield, reporting that in San Francisco, since the pandemic, office vacancies have jumped from 5% to 24%. One solution is to turn that office space into homes. Why are so many developers converting to housing?
So the pandemic really changed the real estate market in many ways. A couple of major disruptions came in the housing market. The pandemic really intensified the shortage of housing, and also in the office market. A lot of people are working from home. They've decided they don't want to go back to the office. And so as a result of that, office vacancy rates have really shot up. So a lot of developers are looking at the real estate market and saying, we've got a glut of offices on one hand and a shortage of housing on the other. So why don't we do something? Why don't we turn unused office space into housing?
Where is this trend happening?
We're seeing these conversions in cities all across the country. There have been at least a couple hundred of them by one count. They're happening in places like New York, Chicago, LA, also Philly, DC. The city of Atlanta just paid $39 million for a downtown office building in hopes of converting it to for rent residential. We've seen some pretty iconic buildings like Tribune Tower on Michigan Avenue turned into luxury condos. And so it's really run the gamut for everything from office towers being turned into luxury condos to affordable rental units. What
are some of the obstacles of turning office space into residential space?
Well, that is a real issue. Everyone in the real estate industry has been discussing how to address the housing shortage, how to convert unused offices to residential space, but it's not necessarily as easy as it sounds. And one big obstacle, office buildings just aren't really laid out the same way that residential buildings are. So in the standard office building, you've got an elevator shaft going up the middle of the building. The plumbing all goes up the middle of the building. There are just a few bathrooms on each floor. They're in the middle of the floor. And to convert an office to residential, you've got to have bathrooms and kitchens in every unit of the building, extending to every corner of the building. So that's been one big obstacle. Another one is that local codes require residential windows to open, but office windows don't have to open. So retrofitting the windows is another big issue. So even though this sounds like a no-brainer, it does take some work to achieve.
You have to wonder what it's like to live in one of these office buildings that's been converted into a home.
From talking to people who live in these units, it's really not different from any other apartment building. You are going to have to deal with the realities of urban life. So there isn't necessarily going to be parking. You might have to park on the street or just go without a car and use public transit. Another upside, a big upside I've heard, is that these buildings are very quiet. So unlike the stereotypical apartment building where you hear your neighbors creaking on the floor above you, office buildings usually have concrete floors, so they tend to be very quiet.
That's not a bad deal. Thanks so much, Jeff, for being on our show.
All right. Thank you very much.
Go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.